Whether it's business cards, LinkedIn connections, Facebook friends, or email addresses, more targets isn't always the goal, especially if you've never engaged with them. Renegade marketing is about quality connections of people who truly appreciate the value you share. We'll talk about Renegade marketing and quality connections and more on this edition of Today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for Today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom.
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good.
Yes. And good morning to everyone else out there. Welcome to Today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast, where we will have a conversation around a topic of the week. Our topic this week is Renegade marketing. And if you're wondering why or what that is, well, a week ago we talked about me marketing. And so this week we wanted to talk about Renegade marketing, since we are renegades, I think, correct?
I am.
Okay, awesome.
It's a choice we make, right? Only we can define it, right? I mean, I could say you're a renegade, but until you embrace it, Tom, until you embrace the renegading you, hey, I've heard that before. Are you really a renegade? The reality is probably not.
Or you just haven't explored it yet.
There you go.
Anyhow, so welcome to our show. As we go through our conversation today, and you happen to be watching this broadcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or
LinkedIn Live. It's subdued in the bunker.
In the bunker, Bob's subdued. Please feel free to share your thoughts and ideas as we go through in the comments section. We welcome them. And know that they will not only add value to what we believe or what we're sharing, it'll also help someone else who happens to be paying attention as well. And at the end of the show, Bob and I will each offer our one thing, our today's antidote, to help people try to figure out how to continue to move forward when they have questions about their marketing and the value of quality connections over, as we talked about last week, card slamming. So we'll have that discussion in just a little bit. If you happen to be listening to this on the podcast, thank you. And we would love for you to not only share this with others, it's a great way to provide value to the connections that you have, is to say, hey, I heard this and I thought you might be interested in it. Or, I really enjoy listening to what these two say. I thought you might enjoy it. Check this out. So please feel free to share it with them. And another way that our message can get out to more people is if you rate our show. And as always, Bob, how should they rate our show?
5 stars. Let's not belabor the point.
Fair enough. And if by chance you feel like you're missing out because you don't get a chance to comment, please go to one of those social media platforms where you will find us either live or recorded when you're there, and you can share your thoughts and ideas within that, as other people will review this later in the day and maybe later in the year, or it just happens to pop up on their feed and they're like, well, that's an interesting topic. Let me check it out. So please feel free to share your comments there. And we welcome you, if you want to be even a greater part of the conversation, welcome you to our Ring of Renegades Facebook group. It's easy to do. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and then ask us to join and tell us why you're a renegade. And you can become a part of that community. And we take this message.
1,200 strong.
1,200 strong, correct. We share this message throughout the week. So not only does our topic of the week get discussed here, we have relative conversations to it inside the Facebook group. So you can even dive deeper into what renegade marketing might look like for others and what it might look like for you. So we hope that you will join us there. All right. Now, before we get to our topic, which is coming up, we always start each show with celebrations. Bob, what are you celebrating today?
Well, and I think, Tom, we don't say it enough, but the reason we start with celebrations is it gets us to start to think about what we've accomplished already and it positions us to achieve greater things. So in my case today, what I am celebrating is one of our clients a couple of days ago, I was talking to him and he said to me, Bob, I've got to tell you this. Your vulnerability, your willingness to share what's going on in your life really makes the lessons that you try to teach me, the things you're sharing, so much more insightful, so much more valuable. I really appreciate that you're willing to be vulnerable. Don't stop doing it. And I almost was in tears. Like, oh my God, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
So there you go.
That's a great thing to celebrate. There's no doubt.
How about you?
So it's hard to top yesterday's celebration.
Indeed.
Yesterday was my wife's birthday, and so that was a important celebration.
Our great voice artist, Liz Brush, who does our introduction. So you all know her.
Correct. Or at least have heard her.
Heard her, yes.
So today I'm celebrating the opportunity that I have with a new client that I'm going to be having conversations with later today around an organization that's going through some challenges right now, and we're going to try to help them figure out a path forward for the next year so that they can keep taking their next step along their own unique pathway. And I think, it's one of the things that I truly love. As much as I love helping our longtime clients, I also really like finding new people who have decided they don't have to do this alone. And I think that's a hard decision sometimes to make.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you finally make that choice, there's almost like this sigh of relief that now we can get help. And now we can figure out what we haven't been able to figure out so that we can keep moving forward. And I celebrate, I guess that's maybe my celebration, is those that discover they don't have to go it alone, that there are opportunities for them to help. Sometimes it's finding a mentor or the right person who they can have just conversations with, or it's taking the next step and finding a coach or a consultant who can help them truly dive into and ask some of the questions that no one else is comfortable asking them. So that's my celebration today. I
like that.
What are our
I think as renegades, we should celebrate quality connections, our topic for the day. Because I was thinking this morning, I was reflecting, I'm really blessed. I counted 32 people that I considered real quality connections. And that was a real quick cut. I think there are probably many more, but these are the people that check on me and see through me when I say everything's fine and they go, no, it's not. These are the people that look out for opportunities for me that I don't see. These are the people that celebrate my successes with me when I'm just like, yeah, I did another great thing, or I just did something like, whoa, that's really a big deal. These are the people that introduce you in a way that's deeper than just, this is Bob, he does business coaching, but this is like Bob, I've known him for a long time. He does these things. He's really a great guy. Those are the quality connections. And I think when you talk about how we need to get outside of ourselves to find help to do things, for me, a lot of that comes from my quality connections. The people that I'm comfortable to call up and say, I don't know how to do this thing. Can you help me? Or do you know someone that can help me? And they don't go, you own a business. You should be able to do everything. You're supposed to be Superman. They go, okay, yeah. What would you like? Can I have a day to find you someone? Sure, that'd be great. And then they find someone, and that creates often another quality connection.
That's interesting. I like that. I like the fact that you actually took the time to go in and try to count what it is. I think we can get lost in the numbers easily and trying to grow those numbers or be jealous of someone else who has more, seemingly just based on a number that is really in some ways artificial in terms of a connection. So I love that. And it's a great segment into our conversation about quality connections. And I think you did a nice job of defining a little bit about what it is. And it's curious, as you were saying that, I was starting to think about, I wonder if I went through my Rolodex, my Facebook friends, my LinkedIn connections, what my number might be. And I think that is an interesting thing. And the question might be, when's the last time I connected with one of those people?
That was one of the things that came up with me as I was doing that. It's like, oh, I really need to call this person. Oh, wow, it's been a while. And if they are quality connections, you'll pick up where you left off. It's like that person you know from high school or college where you go right back into the same jokes. And then you say, oh, by the way, how's your family doing? I don't ever feel that sense with my quality connections. If I haven't talked to them in 6 months or a year, they don't go, where have you been, Bob? What's wrong with you? You haven't called me. They're just like, yeah, you're busy. I'm busy. It's great to hear your voice.
Right. Sometimes things don't align the way we would like them to. And I think that's interesting. Really?
Yeah, I've got some experience with that right now.
I think we all have experience with that. So you're not alone. I think that's an interesting thing. And I think that the challenge is that I'm not sure that that's valued in today's society. Now, I understand sometimes the value of more. Although it was interesting. I had a client who was in the social media space. And as I worked with him on some things, one of the things I started to understand was just that, let's say he was an Instagram person, that just because you have X number of Instagram followers, more. So there were people who had more followers in the platform that he was using. And yet their revenues and their view times, or their, actually looking at each piece of content, were less. And so in return, the result was he was generating more revenue because he had followers who were interested and paying attention longer. And I think that is it's a good message for all of us to consider that, again, having 1 million LinkedIn connections is impressive, I guess, in one way. And yet that doesn't necessarily mean that more people are going to connect and engage and actually pay attention to what you have to say. And as you mentioned, would they be willing to do those other things that really make a difference? Or are they just followers who happen to agree with or believe or appreciate what you have to share?
Well, and I think if you go at this, and I want to be really clear, because I heard what you were saying and I heard what I said back in my head for a second. It's not the number of connections that are quality connections. I said 32. It might be 39. It might be 26. And that number varies from time to time. I think it's having the person, it could be one person that you can be brutally honest with and say, you know what? I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, I was speaking to college students last night about career prep. And one of the students asked me, what's the one lesson that you've learned in being out in the work world for all these years? And I didn't even think about it. I was like, no one knows what the hell they're doing. And the students were like, what? I said, no one knows what the hell they're doing. I said, I had given the same presentation 3 times. I said, if you went to the first presentation, it was one way, the second one was the second way, and this one's the third way. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I had a plan, timing changed. I had to scramble. I'm figuring it out as I go. And if you went and talked to every single one of these people here who's out in a career and really pushed them, they'd be like, yeah, I really don't know what I'm doing. We just don't know. And they were like, but you're in a career. I said, and I'm figuring it out. And I think quality connections allow us the space to figure things out without being judged, without worrying, without fear that, oh, you don't know everything. I'm going to tell all your friends. I mean, I was thinking about when you and I got to know each other. I remember the first time we got together at a networking event, and I said something to you that was really like vulnerable. And for a second, I'm like, oh my God, this guy talks to all kinds of people at networking events. He's going to tell everyone my secret. I'm never going to be able to show my face again. And for a second, that went through my head. But then the way you responded to it it was something, I don't remember what it was, but it was something where you're like, yeah, I have that same issue. And instantly it was like, okay, this guy is a guy I can connect with. This is a guy who's willing to have the hard discussions, not the easy ones. And that's what really started all this. You and I became quality connections to each other. And our whole effort here for the last 2 years has been to really bring this to a broader group through the Ring of Renegades, through our Renegade Success Network, through our coaching, through our workshops, through our classes, through the book, through all these things. It's about building those quality connections, because you and I have seen the value with each other, and we've seen it with other people. And it's hard to find. It's hard to develop, but it's so incredibly valuable. It really, one of them is amazing. 2 of them is beyond belief. And 20 of them is just huge. And I think of the success I've had in my professional life in the last 5 years compared to prior years. And a lot of it's because I've surrounded myself with quality people who ask the hard questions, who call me on my stuff, who say, hey, you said you were going to do this thing. Let's do what? Were you talking, or were you really serious about it? It's like, sometimes you have to admit, I was talking. Yeah. I wasn't serious about it. And that makes a difference.
No, I think that's right. And I think, it's interesting as you were saying that about we don't know what we're doing. I think we know what we know.
Yes.
And admitting to ourselves that we don't know it all is and I think even maybe more important is we don't control it all. I mean, as you mentioned to me before, you went into that presentation last night with a plan. Mm-hmm. Something happened completely out of your control that threw that plan for a loop. And so at that point, then you had to react. And I think that is so typical for where we are at in life, in our professional lives, is that, yeah, we have a skill set that we believe has value and will offer value to others. Yet we're not always probably never put in the perfect situation to share that and have people be able to receive it in the way that they would prefer. And so, just because there are more people in the room doesn't mean they're going to hear it any differently. Whereas if you have less people in the room, you have and they actually really care and pay attention. I think that's the interesting thing about, networking groups is, it's great to be in a networking group of 100, 1,000. Yet can we really serve all those people truly as a networking group? Yet if you find a networking group that has 8 or 10 people who are deeply connected, know an awful lot about, and the numbers can vary. But I think to be able to truly connect and engage with those people, there's sometimes it's just a very small number. And that allows you to know them intimately about their business and a little bit about them personally, so that you can then serve as not only an advocate, and also, as you said, someone who can ask them the question that they're not willing to ask themselves. And as I think about that, is in all of my jobs that I was in, I had one really good quality connection who was the person, and I'm sure I've shared this before, who would tell me, Tom, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Or, I like this. Have you thought about this? How would this, because they knew enough about me and what I was doing and trying to accomplish and cared, that they could not just like, oh, that's a great idea. Go ahead. You should go ahead with that. Or, they were actually trying to help me be the best that I could be. And I think when you find those people and you can surround yourself with those people, as you shared, it can truly make a huge difference.
It also makes it more fun. I mean, one of the things I find is that when I accomplish something, you celebrate it in a way that makes it fun to share it with you. And not like jealous, like, oh my God, Bob's having success, this is driving me crazy. But wow, I know you've worked hard to achieve this. I want to celebrate that with you. And I think that's different than what often happens, where we feel competitive towards other people. It's like their success means I lost. They got the account, I didn't get the account. And I think that's another area where having those quality connections can really make a difference. And those quality connections, as I think of those 32 people, some of them are clients, some of them are former clients, some of them are networking partners, some of them are friends from my childhood, some of them are people that I was introduced to by a third party. Some of them are people, there's one guy that I drove back from Chicago after 9/11, and he and I spent 13 hours in a car in a really tense situation. He's a guy, when I call him, he is like, oh my God, Bob, it's so great to hear your voice. We shared a lot in that 13 hours.
Sure.
Professionally, we haven't helped each other as much as we probably could. But whenever I talk to him, I come off of that call with a feeling of, wow, Brian really made a difference. And he always says something to me that's really profound. And that's all it takes. I mean, I'll surround myself. I like people who challenge me. I don't want to be with the people who go, oh, Bob, that's great. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, let's go get another beer. I want the people to say, hey, so what did you do to earn this beer? What did you do today that you didn't do yesterday? It's like, that's a thoughtful question.
Well, and I think that those other connections are fine to have.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with them, and there's a place for all of that.
But they may not be propelling you to where you want to go.
Correct. And I think that's the same.
They aren't renegade connections. They're connections.
Correct. And I think that's sort of the same with many of our social media connections or business cards or email, people on our email list. I would challenge people, go take a look at your email list. How many of those people do you truly know and think are a connection? And if they're not, or if they are, when was the last time you talked to them or tried to help them? And if they're not, are they really adding value to your community, to your efforts? Or is it just an email list that you get to send them information that they may or may not ever look at? Right.
So what's your one thing today, Tom?
Yeah, my one thing, I think, it's we've talked about it so much, and I think that it's key. I think my one thing, as I go back to one of the things I was thinking about through all of this, was the book, The Go-Giver. As you know, it's one of my favorite books. And it really talks about a group of, I think there are 5 people in this. And while they don't see each other all the time, they are constantly thinking about how the things that they do or the value that they share may impact someone else and might be valuable to their other connections. And so I guess my one thing is to ask everyone who's listening or hears this, what is your number? How many are the people, as Bob went through and did today, do you feel like these are quality connections? These are people who I know that if I picked up the phone and called them, they would do just about anything they could to help me with whatever it was I was looking for. Someone to celebrate with, someone to ask me that really hard question that no one else is willing to do, someone who would maybe say, I think you're not you're in a different space. You might want to think about something different, because I'm not sure that this is going to add value to what you're trying to accomplish and may take you off track. And so I think that's my one thing, is that go find out what your number is and consider the value that it provides you and the value you provide them.
I think that's the name of the game ultimately, right? What is the value that you provide them and they provide you? The quality comes from what's provided versus the quantity. And so I would encourage people that if you find you do that list and you say, oh, I only have 4 or 5 quality connections, then I would say, what are you planning to do to make it a 6th? What are you planning to do to make it a 7th? Because you have control over that, and you can build that by how you show up with people. And that, your vulnerability, to go back to something we talked about early in the program, can be part of it. Just being open and honest with people instead of the posturing like, oh yeah, business is amazing. All my quality connections know that business is not always amazing for me. And they don't judge based on that. They don't go, wow, you're a complete failure, Bob. They go, hey, wow, okay, what are you doing to build it back up? Well, I'm doing this, this, and this. Oh, I know someone who can help you there.
And I would just offer to that, just as I like that a lot. I also think that if your number is 6 and those 6 are really good, You may not need more. You can have other connections. You may not need more quality connections. Those
it could be
six
one.
The
right one could be all you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you
agree.
really think about quality, many times over quantity, because I think we're in a world where quantity, everybody wants to talk about the social media influencer who's got 6 million followers. And is there maybe some value to that?
Maybe. All right, Tom, we can talk about me if you want.
Well, I thought you had 10, so I was, thinking of something.
10 million or just 10? It's more like just 10.
I'll let you decide what that.
Thank God I have a big family.
So I think that's, I like it. And I think that's the thing is we go back to not judging. If our number is 1 and that's all we feel that we need, and we feel like that is enough to satisfy the value that we're looking for and that we're offering, great. If it's more than that, you have the ability to choose what that number is. I would just encourage you to define what quality means for you.
Yes.
And
that would be a really good discussion.
Yeah.
I'm going to post that in the Facebook group.
Okay. Excellent.
How do you define a quality connection? I think that'd be a really interesting.
I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah. I want to pop a comment in here, Tom. This is from John. Hey, Bob's in the dungeon. Actually, it's the bunker. And Tom's in the office. I think he's suggesting that you're in the upper floor and I'm buried in the bottom floor.
Doesn't matter.
Could be. We're actually, about 25 miles away from each other?
Maybe not quite that far. And
we have a question. How do you develop a quality connection? Which is a great question. Tom, you want to tackle that one while I figure out who said it?
Sure. I think it's different for everyone. I think that I actually am not sure you develop a quality connection. I think it develops. Like, I don't think Bob and I intentionally tried to create a connection. I think what happened is we found out that we shared some similar values around networking. That was key. We were willing to be open and honest and see what that vulnerability led to. And I think that the more we did that, the more comfortable we got of where that person was. And
we also had some common interests or common experience with our careers.
Certainly. Yeah, right. So we had things in common. But I think that was one of those, I don't know that was the first part of it. I think that
came later. Around our ideas of networking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And shared frustration. But also, I think when we started to get together, it was a natural discussion. I don't ever remember a time when I came to a meeting with you where I was like, what am I going to tell him? It just sort of flowed into life. And I think that's like any good relationship. If you think of your really good friendships, you just know, you can sit with that person and not say a word for an hour and you're still with that person. And if that's what that person needs or what you need in that time, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
Tom's saying, I can't remember Bob ever being quiet for an hour in any time I've known him. Maybe 30 seconds, but that would be testing.
Nah, I know that sometimes I talk for a couple of minutes. So
by the way, that question came from Pamela. And I would add to that finding a quality connection is about going out and just looking at people and just, I think there's a spark. The people I have quality connections with, there's just something that's different about them. It may be the way they answer the question. It may be how they present themselves at a meeting. It may be that they say something to you that causes you to go, whoa, I never thought of that before. It can be anything. It's a lot like finding love, right? How do you find love? It's there or it's not there, and it's not like you can put your finger on it. And I think if you're soliciting quality connections, you're going to struggle to find them. I think it's just looking at the people that make you feel good. I mean, that's probably the number one factor for me. If I'm around someone and they make me feel good, oh, I'm getting some feedback. Are you?
Nope.
Oh, wow. That's weird. When you're around people that make you feel good, that just uplift you somehow, That's the quality connection for me. That's the number one thing. Like, wow, I just talked to that person. She's so great. Every time I talk to her, even if it's 30 seconds at a networking event, I feel better about me walking away from that. That's one of the tests for me.
And I think it's hard because we can't control what the other person does, thinks, or what they are looking for. You know, we may say,
we can't control other people.
Not unless
we're going to have to do a whole series on that.
Well, I think that's the challenge, right? Is you're like, even if it's someone who you get together and you hit it off, there may be times or reasons or challenges to how that can become the connection that you desire. It's not the connection that they desire. And, and I think you mentioned finding love. It's kind of like dating, is that sometimes you think this might be the absolute best person and they may or may not feel the same way. And I think that's why I'm not sure you can develop a quality connection. I think it develops. And it becomes a shared thing where both people start to see the value of being with the person. So as an example, I went to a live event. It was run by a person who ended up being my coach for a while, and probably still is in some regards. And there were well over 150 people there. And it was people who would be great. Any one of them would be great to have as a quality connection. And yet when I walked away from that, there were probably 4 or 5 that developed into a quality connection that I'm still in touch with today. And that event was 3 years ago. And I think that's sort of how it happens, is that, and there were other people in there that I really enjoyed, had a good connection with, am still in touch with, and yet I don't see that as the same type of connection. It's different, valuable, and I appreciate them for what they offer. It's just not the same. And I think that's sometimes the challenge of, there are all these people in our lives, and many of them are good connections, really good connections. And yet maybe they aren't great connections, and not great in a good or bad, but more just, they're those connections that you always will hold on to, no matter how long remember how long it's been since you've connected with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can nurture them.
Yes.
By staying in touch with those people. Although, again, I sort of think that happens naturally. Bob and I don't think we tried to develop this connection.
No.
And it was always there after about the first year, I think, or 6 months.
Yeah.
And then it came and went for 9 years. And now it has developed into what it is today. But that's a great question.
It may take that long.
It may take that long. Correct.
Or longer. And that quality connection could be someone you're talking to today that you don't even realize yet, or you've never looked at it this way. That's what I find, that when I started to do the counting this morning, it was a function of, oh, yeah, that person really uplifts me. Every time I talk to that person, they give me some nugget that's worth the time. They're more dedicated to my success than their own when I'm on the phone with them, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, we should wrap this up, Tom. We've given people way too much to think about.
Well, it was a great question, Pamela. Thanks so much. And
Yes.
And again, I don't think that was a discussion that we were intending to have, and it definitely added value to the show. So thank you so much for sharing that question. Everyone else, if you have other questions you'd like to share and didn't get them in, go ahead, put them in the comments. But even if you're listening to this not live, we do go back in and look at and respond to all those questions, and someone else might as well. And if you've been able to add value to someone, you might develop someone who might become a good connection, or who knows, they might become that connection that makes all the difference in where you're headed. And I think so often we discount that those people we just meet might end up being those people that stay with us for a long, long time. So go out and make it an amazing day. Thanks so much for listening today. If you want to continue this conversation, or share your thoughts about the question Bob's going to post, join us in our Ring of Renegades Facebook group because we would love to have you have a part of that discussion. And we have some other things coming up that we're going to be excited to share that I think is along these lines of developing quality connections.
We do?
We do. We'll share some more information about that
excited.
in a little bit. A little teaser there.
Can't wait to find out.
Sometimes I just throw things out there to see if you're paying attention.
I'm paying attention. Wow, okay.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us today. We appreciate it all. We look forward to seeing you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for our next edition of Today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, call a quality connection today if you have one and just say thanks for being a quality connection and embrace the renegading you.
I like that. Who are you going to call?
I don't know.
Ghostbusters?
I was thinking that.
Funny how sometimes those lines just go right to there's only one thing you can think about.
That's right.
All right, everyone. Have a great day. We will see you soon. Thanks for listening to Today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.